There's a task you've been meaning to start. You know it matters. You know you should do it. And yet, you keep putting it off. That delay isn't a character flaw. It's a motivation problem. And motivation is often very misunderstood. Welcome to Learning Reframed, Education Without the Noise. I'm Dr. Ken Feldman, and today we're talking about motivation, not as a feeling and not as willpower, but as a system. Most people think motivation shows up first and actions follow. In reality, it usually works the other way around. People don't avoid learning because they're lazy or uncommitted. They avoid it because starting feels unclear, overwhelming, or under-rewarding. When those conditions are present, motivation collapses. When they're addressed, motivation returns, often with little effort. So what motivation actually is? Motivation isn't a single force. It's the result of three conditions working well together. The first is clarity. You can't feel motivated towards something vague. Study for the test or work on that project gives the brain nowhere to begin. Clarity means knowing exactly what you're doing, knowing when you're starting, and knowing what done looks like. When clarity is missing, hesitation replaces motivation. The next is connection. Motivation requires some form of emotional connection. That doesn't mean excitement, it just means the task has meaning. Meaning might come from curiosity, relief, progress, identity, responsibility. If a task feels empty, motivation fades quickly. Momentum. This is the most overlooked component. Motivation rarely creates action. Action, though, creates motivation. Once movement begins, it becomes easier to continue. When all three, clarity, connection, and momentum, are present, motivation stabilizes. When one is missing, it just weakens. Let me share a real example. I once worked with a student who was labeled unmotivated. When we looked closely, the issue was simple. The assignment he received was unclear. The topic felt meaningless, and the student hadn't started, so the task felt larger every day. We didn't push harder. We clarified the initial step. We connected the topic to something familiar. We started with just 5 minutes. That was enough to restart motion. The student didn't change, the system did. So why does motivation break down? When motivation disappears, it's usually because one of these conditions is present. The first is being overwhelmed. Tasks that feel too large triggers avoidance. The brain protects itself by delaying. Ambiguity. Unclear expectations create indecision. Indecision feels like resistance, delayed reward. Deep learning pays off later. When short-term reward is missing, motivation weakens. Then there's pressure. High stakes raise anxiety. Anxiety reduces engagement. Pressure doesn't increase motivation, it suppresses it, designing motivation instead of waiting for it. Motivation improves when tasks are designed thoughtfully. Start smaller than you think you need to. Begin with manageable steps, reduce resistance. Progress builds belief. When progress is visible, effort can be seen, motivation increases. Checklists, trackers, and simple logs help learners recognize movement. Reduce friction. The harder it is to begin, the less likely people are to start. Preparation matters more than encouragement. So how do we do this? Let's script the first step. When the first action is clear, hesitation just drops. Open the document and write one sentence is far, far more effective Then work on the essay. Pair effort with relief. Motivation strengthens when effort leads to relief, not just expectation. Short breaks, closure, and completion matter. Across different learners, we see this in multiple ways. Students engage when tasks feel achievable. Parents see less resistance when structure replaces pressure. Adult learners regain momentum when goals are realistic. And educators notice improvement through follow-through and expectations are clear. Motivation improves when the systems improve. So why does this work? Motivation depends on the brain's ability to predict reward. When progress feels possible and visible, effort feels worthwhile. When tasks feel endless and unclear, avoidance feels just safer. This isn't a mindset issue, it's design. Let's talk about a brief pause. Think about one task you've been avoiding. What's unclear about it? What's the smallest possible starting point? What would make progress visible? You don't need motivation first, you need motion. So in closing, motivation isn't something you wait for. It's something you create by making it easier to start. When clarity improves, resistance drops. When progress becomes visible, effort returns. That's how motivation works, quietly and consistently. Next time on Learning Reframed, we'll talk about attention, how focus actually works, why it breaks down, and how to design environments that support deep concentration without relying on willpower. If today's episode resonated with you, follow the podcast on your favorite platform and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. But more importantly, share this episode with someone you might find it helpful. I'm Ken Feldman. Thanks for listening to Learning Reframed. See you next time.